There are few things in property management more dangerous than a resident who believes a parking spot means something. Not legally, not contractually, emotionally. Because once someone decides that Space 27 is part of their identity, you are no longer managing parking. You are managing territory. This is case number 0024, the parking dispute, with extra enforcement. You're listening to Filed and Deranged, Property Management's Classified Circus. Real incidents, one catastrophe at a time, where every story sounds unreal until you realize it isn't. We've seen the files. We've read the reports. We tried to believe they were exaggerated. We were so wrong. Today's file, a parking dispute that started with a policy and ended with multiple adults fully committing to the worst possible version of themselves. Act 1. The system. It always starts simple. Assigned parking. Or, well, assigned-ish parking. Which is already a red flag. Because if your parking system requires a paragraph, a diagram, and a follow-up email, it's not a system. It's a loud suggestion. This particular property had everything. Permits, visitor passes, towing enforcement, even a sign that said, "Unauthorized vehicles will be towed," in a font size that felt negotiable. And of course, residents who all understood the rules slightly differently. One thought their spot was guaranteed. One thought it was first come, first served. One thought guest parking meant anywhere I personally feel comfortable. And management? Management thought this would all simply sort itself out. It did not. Act 2. The claim. It always starts with the same sentence. That's my spot. Now, sometimes that's true. Other times, it's strictly based on vibes. 6 consecutive successful parking attempts becomes a lifelong entitlement. Yup, that's my spot. And once that sentence is said out loud, logic quietly leaves the building. Because now it's not about parking anymore. It's about being right. So the notes begin. Not normal notes, mind you. Not, "Hey, I think there's been a mix-up." No. Parking notes are always written like someone is seconds away from drafting legislation. All caps, underlines, confidence, wildly disproportionate to the situation. At this property, one resident left a note on a gray 2013 Honda Civic, slightly dented rear bumper, parking job that suggested a long-term commitment to being just a little off. The note read, "You've been parking here all week. This is assigned. This is my spot. Next time, you will be towed." Clear, direct, a little prophetic. Act 3. The response. Now here's where things could have de-escalated. A conversation, a clarification, maybe even accountability. Instead, we got a response note. And response notes are never really about resolution. They're usually handwritten escalation. The reply? "Been parking here for months. Never a problem. Maybe learn how parking works." Oh, we're doing tone now. And just like that, this is no longer about Space 27. This is about respect, which is how we enter the next phase of parking lot madness, documentation. The documentation phase. Photos, timestamps, angle variations. At least one person briefly considers printing out screenshots. Someone says, "I have proof." And the leasing office? The leasing office is now CC'd on an email thread that has absolutely no intention of ending peacefully. Act 4. Policy becomes a weapon. So management steps in with policy, which is technically correct and emotionally useless. Per your lease, per community guidelines, per Section 8, subsection B of yada yada yada. And nothing escalates a situation faster than someone quoting policy to someone who has already decided they don't care. So enforcement begins. Warnings, tow stickers, final notices. Then one night, around 2:13 a.m., a tow truck shows up. Not quietly. Never quietly. Backup beeping, hydraulics, the unmistakable sound of consequences. And by morning, the Honda Civic is gone. Now, was it authorized? Technically. Was it understood? Absolutely not. And that's the moment everything shifts, because inconvenience becomes a financial cost. This cost becomes anger, and anger becomes personal. Act 5. The patch of ground people will bleed for. This is the part where someone decides to just go talk to them. No good story has ever improved after that decision. It's late afternoon, parking lot, full visibility, blinds slightly moving in Building C because people are absolutely watching but refusing to be witnesses. And right there, parked, centered, confident, the gray 2013 Honda Civic. Slight dent, same questionable alignment, still in space 27. Oh, so we're doubling down now. The conversation starts tight, short sentences, measured tone, a lot of pointing, specifically at the lines on the ground like they are legally binding. And then someone says it. You had my car towed. Not a question, a statement, followed immediately by, you don't get to do that. And there it is. We've left parking. We are now in authority disputes. Voices rise, distance closes, finger-pointing upgrades into full-arm gestures. Someone brings up the note, not casually, no, quoted, word for word. Next time, you will be towed. So you think you run the parking lot now? And the Civic owner? Calm. Too calm. That's my spot. Oh no, not again. Not the phrase. Because once "that's my spot" is said in person, it hits different. Now it's not ink on paper. Now it's eye contact. Now it's personal. Now it's, I'm willing to stand here in public and defend this rectangle of asphalt like I signed the deed myself. Voices are fully raised now. Someone steps forward. Someone else doesn't step back. And that's the moment, that exact moment, where this could still stop. It does not. Because at some point, it stopped being about the car. It stopped being about the tow. It stopped being about space 27 and became about something far more dangerous. Who backs down first? Closing act. It was never just about parking. And that's the part that sticks, right? At some point, management thinks they're just handling a parking issue. But depending on who's involved, it's not just parking. It's territory. It's pride. It's retaliation. It's a running scoreboard nobody agreed to keep. Because once someone starts saying, it's not even about the spot anymore, It's definitely about the spot, just not in the way any lease ever intended. And by the time it spills out into the open, it's already been building. In the notes, in the photos, in the very specific way someone says, "I'm not trying to be difficult." And the wild part? If you walked that lot the next morning, everything would look normal. Cars parked, lines painted, maybe even that same Civic back in a spot it absolutely does not own, like nothing happened. If you've got a story like this, where the facts didn't quite match the explanation, submit a case file at classifiedcircus.com. We'll take it from there. Lesson of the lease. If they're talking about the parking spot like it came with emotional ownership, it's probably not just parking. And if throwing punches has entered the storyline, it's definitely not just about the parking spot anymore. This episode is adapted from real incident reports of parking disputes that escalated significantly beyond just parking. Next time on Filed and Deranged. At first, it just looks like stuff. Then a little too much stuff. And then you realize, Houston, we've got a problem.